Hello, welcome to the Pitt Post-Game Show here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Your Pitt beat reporters Chris Carter, Stephen Thompson here at Acrisure Stadium after the Panthers have taken down Syracuse 41-13 in a complete and utter beatdown of a Syracuse team that came in here 5-1, feeling very confident with one of the best statistical quarterbacks in Kyle McCord going into this game, going up against Pitt. And it was Pitt's defense that took over this game. Stephen, as always, we got our good, bad, and ugly. What was your biggest good from this game? Because there was a pretty obvious one.
Yeah, I think if you showed up to this game a little bit early, you might have seen some kids in the student section, you know, rocking shark costumes, holding surfboards with a big shark bite taken out of them. That's because Pitt's linebackers, who were outstanding today, called themselves the Sharks. And they smelled blood early, and they took advantage. They went in for the kill. They had Rasheem Biles had a pick six on the first possession of the game. Brandon George has an interception on the second play of the game, or the second drive of the game. And then Kyle Lewis has another pick six on the third play of the game. These guys were all over the field. I think in total they had 4 of Pitt's 5 interceptions. Yes. They created all 5 of them if you include Jordan Pass's tip ball to P.J. O'Brien. But these guys also made plays in the backfield. They were great in coverage. They were good against the run. This is the best unit on the team. I mean, we've been talking about that all year. Yep. We said that even back in training camp, and they're proving it right now. They are getting better. They are getting deeper. Pitt's linebackers are really living up to their nickname, the Sharks, because of how much they are hunting opposing defenses. It was
insane when just seeing this crowd. Literally, there was a person dressed up as a giant shark, like the left shark from the old Katy Perry halftime show from the Super Bowl many years ago, and people, the student section was loving it, and they keep playing the Jaws theme, and it was just like becoming more and more pronounced with every pick six here. The 3 pick sixes by Pitt's defense, all 3 done by their linebackers. Rasheem Biles first, Kyle Lewis, then Braylon Lovelace on a screen pass. All very impressive. First time since USC against Rice in 2000 that an FBS football team had 3 pick sixes in the same game. First time for Pitt since 2008 against UConn that they had 5 interceptions in the same game. Crazy there. My good, I'm going to take it to the defensive backs. Now, P.J. O'Brien is the only defensive back that had an interception in this game. But part of what you said is that we knew going into this season, this Pitt linebacker unit was deep, right? And that was something that was going to be big. But so many times in football, you can't just have good, really good linebackers and just that expect to carry you. You need a balanced defense. And I think what we're seeing is a balanced defense, and a lot of it has to do with the secondary behind it. Make no mistake, D-line was really good in this one too, but I want to highlight the secondary because several times Kyle McCord tested this secondary, going deep down the sidelines, trying to find open guys, and he could not hit on those plays. And there were some times he couldn't hit on them because it was really, really good coverage. First play of the game was a pass deep down the sideline, attacking Rashad Battle. Battle was in better position than the receiver. The receiver had to turn into a defender to take away what would have been an interception on the first play of the game. And then you had other plays. Ryan Gandy, who I think has been spectacular for Pitt in the last 3-4 games, he was just blanketing his guy all over. Timlin Lyman, really awesome as well. And the safeties as well. Like we're talking corners there. The safeties were phenomenal. P.J. O'Brien had his interception, but you also had Donovan McMillan flying up, making tackles like he always does. Javon McIntyre, who I think has become an eraser in this secondary, Stephen. I counted at least 3 times he was targeting this game. All 3 of those passes that I saw, incomplete passes, some of them with good breakups. He also had a breakup that led to Brandon George's interception. This secondary did the job in this game that allowed Pitt's linebackers to go be aggressive, and that's why I want to tie that into. Actually, no, that's my ugly. So we'll talk about that later. But point being, this secondary is doing the job that, hey, if the passes are going to come our way, we're going to make it so that you're not going to beat us for big plays, so that those guys can make the big plays, and that's a big part of what played into this. So we'll get into some other parts of that later. But Stephen, there are some bad news for Pitt that came out from the press conference.
Yeah, Pitt had 2 major injuries in this game. One actually happened before this game. Branson Taylor, the starting left tackle, missed today with an undisclosed injury that he suffered in the Cal game. He only played 11 snaps in that game, but as it turns out, it will be a season-ending knee injury. Pat Narduzzi revealed that in his post-game press conference. So sad to miss Branson Taylor. This is the 3rd year in a row that Pitt has lost their starting left tackle, a senior, midway through the season or before the season. But they're also monitoring injury to Eli Holstein, which does not seem nearly as serious, but something we'll still have to keep track of before they head down to Dallas to play SMU. Holstein left in the middle of the fourth quarter. Seemed to be maybe a head thing. Pat Narduzzi said that they thought he maybe had some dirt in his eye. It turned out to not be dirt in his eye, but we're going to keep an eye on that throughout next week. Pat Narduzzi did not seem worried about it, but obviously something you got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, certainly. But Pat Narduzzi is saying, hey, he's happy. He was jumping around. Knowing Pat Narduzzi, having covered this man, I have covered this man in weeks where he was like, Kenny Pickett's fine. He's expecting to play this week. And then Kenny Pickett's not on the plane in Miami. And I'm like, why is that? And so their coaches will play these games where certain guys don't, they try to put on airs about who's playing and who's not, because in college football, you can get away with that. So that's something that we're going to pay very close attention to, keep an eye on. If we get a chance to talk to Eli Holstein this week, that'll put that to bed. But that's certainly a bad to hold on to. Branson Taylor, a big loss, like you said. Last year was Matt Gonsalves. The year before that, Carter Warren. They just seem to have really bad luck with their offensive tackles, especially their left tackles. But my bad... People are going to think this is weird when they look at his stat line, but it's Eli Holstein. And it's not his stat line. He was 10 of 15 for 2 touchdowns, a little over 100 yards. It looks efficient numbers-wise. But my problem, Stephen, is I think Eli Holstein still is not comfortably seeing the field right now. You and I noted this early on. When Pitt was getting those pick sixes, they were also getting stops and 3 and outs, and Pitt's offense wasn't capitalizing on it. And a big part of why Pitt's offense hasn't been able to capitalize is because Eli Holstein was taking what's there, was distributing the football, was making smart reads, getting the football out on time. And there were too many times, I think, that he was looking for the home run. And he's acknowledged several times this season, this is a problem. He's like, hey, I was looking for the home run ball, and then I passed up on this. I need to play what's there. And yet again, that looked like it was the issue. Now, he does come into this game. He does throw the 2 touchdown passes he threw were good reads, good throws over the middle. But there were several plays Cade Bell drew up in this game that he did not get to take advantage of. He's a redshirt freshman. He's a baby. He's going to grow. I think this is an awesome foundation and a floor he set for himself. But if Pitt wants to ride this 7-0 record into the college football playoff conversation as the weeks continue, they got a ranked SMU team that they're going to face in Dallas next week. They're going to need Eli Holstein to get back to throwing 3 touchdown passes a game and being efficient with the football.
Yeah, I think you hear about this more in basketball than in football, but it seems like he's hit a little bit of a rookie wall, I would say. It's just the things that were working for him early are not working for him right now. I think Cade Bell's a good quarterbacks coach. We've talked a lot about him as a play caller. I think they'll be able to work through this, and Eli's a smart guy. He takes criticism pretty harshly. He's very self-critical, so he's going to figure it out. But for right now, it's not pretty.
It's not. Now let's get to the ugly, not just the not pretty. The ugly isn't Eli Holstein, it's the other quarterback. He was atrocious. Kyle McCord, who was being heralded as one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, and rightfully so. He had great numbers. I mean, the Pitt had every reason to come in respecting this man. And they came out here beating the snot out of him. No touchdowns. He actually threw the second most passes in the history of this stadium when it comes to college football games. The most since the second game ever played here. There was Marquell Blackwell of South Florida that threw just one more pass than McCord did in this game. But the keynote here, 0 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. Pitt had everything for him. And I thought, Stephen, it was very telling when we talked to Pitt's players after the game, Kyle Lewis, the linebackers, all of them really saying like, hey, we studied that guy for 2 weeks. We used the bye week. We heard all this talk about he was better than Eli and what they're gonna do to us. And we said, we're gonna show you what it is. Pitt said, they acknowledged, like, hey, we knew that he wanted to go through the quick outs. We know that he wanted to attack the middle, so we had to get into our drops faster. Braylon Lovelace acknowledging that. Rasheem Biles acknowledging that. Kyle Lewis talking a little talk after the game. I think there was a little bit of that, and Kyle McCord, they were ready for what he wanted to do. They took advantage of it for several big plays, and McCord never really bounced back. You and I talked about this. I thought at some point, Syracuse should have pulled him to protect him because he also got sacked 4 times. Just a really rough day for him in a game where there's a lot of rough things to go around. Yeah,
like you said it correctly. I mean, nothing really went right for Syracuse in this game. Yeah, they were able to put a couple touchdowns on the board in garbage time, but, I mean, they missed field goals. They had bad penalties. They tackled poorly. There were a lot of things that went wrong in addition to the poor quarterback play that ends in a 41-13 loss. And this was a team, like you said, that had a ton of momentum, a really positive start in Fran Brown's first year, and it all just kind of fell apart on the field right behind us.
Yeah, Fran Brown, I mean, coming into, he wasn't the guy, last year, but, Pitt, I understand. I know Pat Narduzzi. and he holds on to grudges. And when they went into Syracuse last year, they got embarrassed by Dan Villanari, who was a tight end playing quarterback for Syracuse last year, and they just ran all over Pitt, and it was just embarrassing. It was one of the more humiliating performances Pitt suffered last year. Just knowing the tenor of this team, there was a little bit of get back that Pitt wanted to get back, and they got their lick back in this game. They certainly put a whooping on Syracuse. And now, Stephen, they're 7-0, and you know, SMU still has to play a 6-1 Duke team in Duke this upcoming weekend. But if SMU wins that game, you're going to have a 6-1 SMU team
that will likely be ranked in the top 20 alongside this Pitt team, wherever they end up being ranked next week. Exactly.
This game was an exciting ACC game for people to watch, but you know, people were like, you know, Syracuse, Pitt, are they for real? When the national media saw this game, they saw Pitt's defense and they said, whoa, okay, those guys are dangerous. If SMU can do the same thing on Saturday to Duke, it is going to make that game appointment television. A game, by the way, that hasn't gotten an official start kickoff time yet, right?
No, we're not learning until probably Saturday night or early Sunday morning when that game's going to kick off. I mean, for this exact reason, they want to see what Pitt did this week, and they want to see what SMU does against Duke, determine whether this is basically going to be an ESPN or an ESPN2 game. Is it going to be a noon kickoff or a night kickoff? Is there potential for College game day to maybe pay a visit to Dallas, Texas, which is a really interesting spot right now, given all the money that SMU has raised as they made the jump to a Power 5 conference. It's interesting. I don't know if it's going to happen. They're going up against Georgia and Tennessee, who also play each other next week. But either way, it's going to be a really compelling game. One of the more compelling, bigger matchups in the ACC this year.
Either way, Pitt being 7-0. I think Kyle Lewis said it. He said no one had us being here going into this situation. Neither of us certainly did. I thought Pitt might be able to get. I thought Pitt could get 7 wins this season. I didn't think they'd do it in 7 games. And so here we are covering an undefeated Pitt football team. We'll have a lot more coverage for you at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com for all our written work. Stephen wrote the game story. I wrote my analysis on that defensive game plan that led to a lot of those stops. Stephen's got his takeaways as well. So all the coverage that you want after what is a big Pitt win, and I even think semi-historic with how all the crazy things that happened in this game in what has been a very impressive year and an energized Pitt Stadium. It didn't fill up the upper parts of the stadium, but the lower bowl was packed, Stephen, and the student section was rocking with all the Sharks. Man, the next time there's a home game here, I'm very curious to see how loud the Sharks, how many more Shark costumes we get coming from the student section. But from Chris Carter and Stephen Thompson, thanks for tuning into the Pitt Post Game Show here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We'll be back with our Pitt Mailbag Show this upcoming Tuesday. We'll answer more of your questions. Hit us up on Twitter. Email us with your questions. We're always happy to talk to you guys about this Pitt football team and Pitt basketball as that season's around the corner. See you then here for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.